The wind scraped softly across the ridge as I lay behind the rifle, breath slow, body still. Through the scope, far below, 3 enemy generals stepped out of the compound and moved quickly toward a line of dark armored vehicles. Engines were already running, doors opening. They were leaving. Once inside those vehicles, they would disappear and the opportunity would be gone forever. I adjusted the scope, recalculating distance and movement, when something shifted close behind us. A guard. 10 feet away. Boots on gravel. I froze. My finger lifted slightly from the trigger. Beside me, the commander did not speak. I heard the faint click of his sidearm safety coming off. No words, just a silent nod. My hand trembled once, just once. Then I forced a slow breath and the shaking stopped. Crosshairs returned to the first target. The convoy was seconds from departure. 12 seconds would decide everything. History does not wait for perfect odds. Sometimes it waits for one steady hand. Subscribe to my channel, Lady Veteran Stories, for more real military stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Staff Sergeant Madison Carter, United States Army, long-range precision specialist attached to Special Operations Reconnaissance. The year was 2014. I did not grow up dreaming about war or distant shots. I grew up solving equations at the kitchen table. My mother was a physics professor, and she believed emotion could mislead, but numbers never did. Wind, gravity, time, everything followed rules. I carried that lesson into uniform, and it shaped how I survived. By the time this mission began, I had already completed deployments that would never be written in public records. Quiet observation, quiet action, quiet departure. Recognition was never part of the work. Precision was, discipline was, control was. Our team had inserted deep into hostile territory before nightfall. The objective was simple. Observe, record, remain invisible. No engagement planned. The compound below was active but predictable for most of the night. Guards moved in patterns. Lights cycled. Radios murmured and fell silent again. Routine. Then the routine broke. Vehicles rolled into the compound courtyard without headlights. Engines cut. Doors opened. Movement tightened. Through the scope, I watched 3 senior commanders step out surrounded by escorts. Not just leaders, strategic planners. The kind of targets that shifted entire operations if removed. I tracked them, measuring distance, wind, and angle automatically. The range pushed far beyond normal engagement limits. The wind across the valley moved in layers, unstable, unpredictable. A miss would not just fail. It would expose us. Below, more engines started, a convoy forming, doors opening. They were preparing to leave. The window was closing fast. The commander raised his range device, checked once, then again, longer the second time. His jaw tightened slightly. He lowered it and looked toward me. He did not need to explain the risk. We both saw the same numbers, the same instability, the same narrow chance. He spoke quietly, steady but honest. The shot was nearly impossible. The convoy below grew louder, engines rumbling low and steady, vibrating through the ground beneath my chest. Headlights flickered on one by one, cutting thin lines across the courtyard. Doors opened. Guards tightened their perimeter. The generals were no longer standing still. They were moving, fast and deliberate, heading toward the armored vehicles. Time was collapsing. I stayed behind the rifle, eyes fixed through the scope, mind running numbers without pause. Wind brushed across the valley in uneven layers. Dust shifted along the courtyard floor, revealing invisible currents. I adjusted slightly, then again, refining the calculation. Distance, drift, drop, movement. Every variable narrowing toward a single solution. There was no room for hesitation now. Then the gravel shifted behind us. A boot step. Close. I froze instantly, body locked into stillness, breath suspended between inhale and exhale. Through the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the darkness. An enemy guard walking the ridge, no more than 10 feet away, scanning lazily with his rifle hanging low. Too close. One sound, one movement, and everything would collapse. Beside me, the commander did not speak. I heard the slow, controlled slide of his sidearm leaving its holster. No panic, no rush, just readiness. The guard paused, turned slightly, listening to the wind instead of us. Seconds stretched thin. My finger hovered just off the trigger, waiting, unmoving. The guard shifted again, then walked past, boots fading slowly into the dark. Only then did I breathe. Below, the generals were almost at the vehicles, one hand already reaching for the door. The convoy engines deepened, ready to move. The opportunity was shrinking to seconds. I returned fully to the scope. Wind recalculated. Lead adjusted. Timing refined. Fear flickered briefly in my chest, but my hand trembled only once. I forced a slow breath, steady and controlled, and the tremor vanished. Discipline replaced doubt. Behind me, the commander leaned slightly closer. He did not ask questions. He did not speak about risk. He simply watched, waiting. I kept my eye on the crosshairs, tracking the first target as he moved toward the vehicle door. The calculation was complete now. Narrow, precise, final. Without turning, without raising my voice, I spoke quietly. I could take the shot. Silence returned, but it was thinner now, stretched tight by urgency. The convoy below was no longer preparing. It was seconds from moving. Doors were open. Guards were climbing into position. One of the generals had already placed his hand on the armored vehicle door, ready to step inside. Once they were sealed in steel, the opportunity would vanish. The commander shifted beside me and raised the range device one last time, confirming what we both already knew. Extreme distance. Unstable wind. A single attempt. He lowered the device slowly and looked at me. No speech, no lecture, just a quiet moment of understanding. Then I heard the soft click of his rifle safety disengaging. A silent question, a silent trust. I gave the smallest nod. Through the scope, the world narrowed again. The first general paused near the door, speaking to one of his escorts. The second moved slightly behind a support pillar near the vehicle line. The third stood half-turned, one hand near his chest, scanning the courtyard with rising suspicion. Time was almost gone. I adjusted the rifle carefully. Temperature drop compensated. Air density recalculated. Spin drift corrected. Even the slow pull of Earth's rotation factored into the solution. Every number aligned. Every variable settled into place. The wind softened briefly, creating a narrow window of stability. Not perfect, but enough. My breathing slowed until it nearly disappeared. The rifle felt weightless, steady, part of me. The convoy engines deepened, vehicles ready to move. Doors beginning to close. Seconds. The commander spoke quietly into comms, voice low and controlled, requesting authorization. A pause followed, long enough to feel heavy. Then the reply came, calm and final. Authorization granted. Authorization changed nothing on the outside, but inside it sharpened everything. There was no room left for doubt, no space for hesitation. The moment had arrived, and execution was all that remained. I settled deeper behind the rifle, letting my body become completely still. My breathing slowed until each inhale and exhale felt measured and controlled. The tremor that had touched my hand earlier was gone now, replaced by steady precision. Years of repetition narrowed this moment into discipline. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Below, the first general began stepping toward the armored vehicle door. The convoy engines rumbled stronger, ready to move. I centered the crosshairs, accounting for distance, wind drift, and time of flight. My finger rested against the trigger, pressure building slowly, smoothly, without sudden movement. The wind shifted slightly across the valley. I corrected instinctively, Dust patterns near the vehicles revealed the change. My adjustment was small, almost invisible, but critical at this range. Everything aligned again. The commander remained still beside me, silent, watching. No words, no countdown, only trust. No countdown, only trust. I paused my breathing at its natural still point and applied pressure. The first shot broke the night. Recoil pressed into my shoulder, controlled and absorbed. Through the scope, the first general dropped before he could reach the vehicle door. Confusion erupted instantly across the courtyard. Guards shouted, weapons lifted, movement exploded. I was already transitioning. The second general reacted fast, diving toward the support pillar beside the vehicles. He disappeared partially behind concrete and steel. A clean shot was gone. I tracked the narrow edge of his cover, calculating angle, penetration, and exposure. I waited a fraction of a second. He shifted, just enough. I adjusted and fired. Impact. He collapsed behind the pillar, motion stopping. The compound was now in chaos. Alarms rising, guards scrambling, doors slamming. Engines revving harder. One target remained. The third general had grabbed a radio, lifting it toward his mouth, turning sharply as he searched for the unseen threat. If he spoke, the mission would fail. I recalculated lead and drift instantly, tracking his movement through the scope, aligning not where he stood, but where he would be. The world narrowed to crosshairs and breath once more. I began the final sequence. The third general moved fast, fear driving him now. The radio was already in his hand, rising toward his mouth. I tracked him to the scope, steady, controlled, my breathing shallow and measured. If he spoke even a single word into that radio, the entire valley would wake, and our escape would vanish. This shot was not just about distance, it was about time. Below, the compound had erupted into full chaos. Guards ran in every direction, shouting, searching the darkness beyond the lights. Engines roared as drivers slammed doors and prepared to move the convoy. Headlights swept wildly across walls and ground, cutting sharp beams into the night. The opportunity was shrinking to seconds. I adjusted for his movement, calculating lead, drift, and travel time almost without thought. Wind brushed across the valley again, faint but enough to matter. I corrected instantly, trusting the math, trusting the discipline carved by years of repetition. My finger tightened slowly on the trigger, pressure building with calm precision. Behind me, the ridge suddenly exploded with white light. A searchlight snapped across our position, sweeping the darkness, hunting. Someone below had guessed the direction of the shots. The beam slid across rock and dust, climbing toward us. At the same moment, I heard the distant thump of a mortar tube firing. No time left. Through the scope, the third general raised the radio closer to his mouth, turning slightly, exposing his upper chest and head. I steadied, breath paused, crosshairs aligned ahead of his motion. The calculation locked. I fired. The rifle cracked, recoil steady and absorbed. Through the scope, the general jerked sharply, the radio falling from his hand before he could speak. He collapsed beside the vehicle, motionless. 12 seconds. 3 shots. Sequence complete. The searchlight struck the ridge fully now, blinding white, exposing dust and rock around us. A second mortar round whistled closer, slamming into the slope below, sending debris and shockwaves upward. The world snapped back into motion. One target remained no longer. The mission was done, but the danger had just begun. The moment the third shot landed, the ridge came alive with violence. The searchlight locked on to our position, flooding the rocks with harsh white glare. Another mortar round screamed overhead and slammed into the slope behind us, shaking the ground hard enough to rattle my teeth. Dust and shattered stone blasted into the air, raining down around us. There was no more silence now, only urgency. The commander grabbed my shoulder and pulled me off the rifle. No words, no hesitation. We moved, We slid down the backside of the ridge, boots scraping against loose rock, bodies low, weapons tight. Another mortar struck higher up the slope, closer this time. The shock wave rolled over us like a physical force, pushing dust into our lungs and filling the air with heat and debris. Small stones struck my helmet and shoulders as we moved, but momentum mattered more than pain. Behind us, voices echoed faintly from the compound, shouting coordinates, searching, reacting. The searchlight swept wildly across the ridge, trying to reacquire us, but we were already dropping into shadow, using terrain and darkness as cover. Every movement had to be fast, but controlled. One misstep on the loose slope could break a leg, and stopping here was not an option. The commander led, steady even under pressure, guiding us toward the extraction route carved through rock and brush below. Another mortar whistled past, landing farther down the ridge, scattering dirt and fragments across our path. The enemy was guessing now, firing blindly, but the danger remained real. My lungs burned from dust and exertion, but training pushed me forward. Rifles secured across my chest, boots finding unstable ground, bodies staying low, moving with the team as one unit. No one spoke, yet coordination remained perfect, built on trust and repetition rather than commands. Finally, the slope leveled, and the searchlight faded behind terrain. The mortar fire slowed, then stopped. Distance grew between us and the ridge where it had all happened. Only then did the commander pause briefly, scanning, listening, confirming we were clear. 12 seconds had changed the mission. Minutes of movement had saved our lives. Without a word, we continued into the darkness. Extraction was underway. We did not stop moving until the ridge was far behind us and the night swallowed the last echoes of mortar fire. The terrain flattened into broken ground and scattered brush, dark enough to hide us, silent enough to hear danger if it followed. My legs burned from the descent, lungs tight from dust, but pace mattered more than comfort. Survival always came first. The commander signaled a brief halt near a shallow rock line. No voices, just scanning, listening, confirming. One by one, the team settled into low positions, watching different sectors, rifles steady, breathing controlled. Minutes passed. No pursuit. No searchlight. No incoming fire. Only distant noise from the compound fading into the night. We moved again. The extraction route cut through uneven ground toward a narrow valley where darkness pooled thick between stone walls. Our steps softened as the soil changed. Less rock, more sand, quieter under boots. The danger was not gone, but it was no longer immediate. The ridge, the shots, the explosions, all of it already felt distant, like something left behind rather than something survived. No one celebrated. No one spoke about what had happened. Missions like this did not end with cheers. They ended with distance, silence, and confirmation that everyone was still moving. Hours later, when the first thin light of morning began to touch the horizon, we reached the final extraction point. The valley remained quiet. No enemy movement. No search patterns. The world had returned to stillness, as if nothing had happened at all. Only then did the commander allow a brief pause. He looked at me for a moment, not long, not dramatic, just enough. No words were needed. Respect in the field was never loud. It was simple, direct, real. Then he turned away and signaled movement again. Mission first. Always. Days passed. Then weeks. Operations continued elsewhere. Different terrain, different objectives, the rhythm of service never slowing. Then, intelligence returned quietly through secure channels. The strike had done exactly what it needed to do. Enemy coordination fractured. Planned operations stalled. Leadership broken. Pressure shifted across the region in ways that would never be publicly explained. Official records stated no engagement occurred, no ceremony, no announcement, no recognition. That was normal. I returned to duty unchanged. The mission had never been about credit, It had been about execution, responsibility, and the team beside me. Still, moments like that do not disappear. They settle quietly somewhere inside, not loud, not heavy, just present. Some missions live only in memory, and sometimes, in the stillest moments, I can still feel the cold wind on that ridge, hear the distant echo of the rifle, and remember the silence that followed. Time moves forward, but some moments stay exactly where they were. Years have passed since that night. Yet when I close my eyes, I can still see the ridge, the distant window, the convoy lights cutting through darkness. People often imagine moments like that as loud, heroic, unforgettable in the way stories are told. The truth is quieter. Real moments that matter most do not feel powerful when they happen. They feel steady, heavy, final. No soldier changes history alone, not with a single shot, not with a single decision. That night only mattered because of the team beside me. The commander who trusted without speaking. The teammates who moved as one when everything depended on silence and precision. Trust, discipline, and responsibility, those are what carry a mission, not one person. When I came home, my family did not know the details. They did not know about the distance, the calculations, the searchlight sweeping the ridge, or the mortars striking close enough to shake the ground. They only knew I returned. Sometimes that is enough. Some stories are not meant to be told completely. Some memories stay where they were made, carried quietly without explanation. What stayed with me was not the shot itself, not the distance, not even the outcome. It was the responsibility. The understanding that sometimes history turns in seconds, and someone must act without recognition, without certainty, without hesitation. You do the job because it is your duty, not because anyone will ever know your name. There are missions that never appear in records, names that are never written. Yet the mission still matters. The team still matters. Duty is enough. Even now, in quiet moments, I sometimes return to that ridge in memory. The cold wind, the steady rifle, the silence after the final shot. Those seconds remain clear, steady, and real, a reminder of what responsibility truly means. Subscribe to my channel, Lady Veteran Stories, for more real military stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.